There we go.
Okay.
The recording has started. So welcome, Janis, and thank you for joining me. So you're in Canada?
I am in Canada.
Oh, nice morning.
It is. There. Yes, it's first thing in the morning over here.
We have a pink sunset outside here. It's lovely.
Oh, nice. We're just checking the sunrise right now. It's pretty normal this morning, but
yeah. So how long have you been in this line of business?
I have been doing this full time for 8.5 years and part-time for about 15.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you've learned a lot in the time that you've been doing this.
This is true. Yes. I was actually really surprised at the difference between that jump from part-time to full-time. There was quite a learning curve there.
There is a huge jump. I had the same when I moved from a corporate job. I worked in what was the first internet accelerator in Africa.
Oh, cool.
And then we sold the business to America online. And I moved to London. So it was all in text messaging. But moving from corporate to working for yourself, where it's only you and the month end and there's no one else, it's a complete mind shift because everything is now your responsibility.
It's a lot more time consuming than I ever really imagined, because when we think about doing our job, so I see clients one-to-one and my maximum is 20. And I remember having a conversation a couple of years ago with a friend who said, well, you know, what would you optimally like that to be? What can you build that to? 20 is what I can build it to, because I have to clean the floor. I have to renew the business license. I have to do the marketing. When there's a weird tech problem, I have to fix that. I have to fix the back end of the sales processing platform. And all of those things are little drops of time, but they add up to, you know, I work much more than 40 hours a week, actually. So although it seems like that 20 hours is a part-time job, it is full-time plus.
It is genuinely full-time plus, because it doesn't go to sleep. When you're asleep, you're still thinking about how to solve yesterday's problem today.
Sure.
If it's not solved.
It's true. I have a 9-year-old child and I talk about my business. I mean, it's basically the same age as my child, but my business is a second child, and quite often it's a more unruly one.
They are, and they sometimes take a lot more attention.
They do.
My kids still tease me. They're in their late 20s, and my daughter says to me, you know, I used to come and test you when we were little because I wanted to see if you'd give me attention. So I had this thing with my wife. I used to stop and turn my chair, because we always worked at home after I left the corporate world. And I'd turn my chair, leave the computer, and I'd give her 100% attention. It was always something little that she wanted, like, Daddy, there's a butterfly or something. And she still remembers that today. And I'm glad that I was able to do that, because your time, you can never replace that with your kids.
That's true.
The world today has got so much pressure on these youngsters. I don't know how they survive it. It's so different to when I grew up.
It's true. Different. It is absolutely true.
So that's really interesting. I had some points on the notes. I just want to have a look at them that I wanted to start asking you about. So what started you on this journey of wanting to help people and treat them where they had pain?
Good question. I myself, many entrepreneurs and practitioners will give you this story, so it's not unique particularly, but I ended up in a scenario where I had pain and I couldn't find anybody to help me. And so I literally give the advice and the systems that I wish that had been available to me, because in 3 hours I can pull somebody out of their pain. And I spent months and weeks and years looking for this solution. And it was just sorting through that combination of what is the underlying issue, and doing that education and doing that training for myself that made me want to help other people, because I've experienced this for myself.
That is interesting. Now, I noticed you're in the sector that deals with trauma and pain.
Yes.
Are you dealing with people who've lost limbs or have physical hard trauma, or is it more emotional trauma?
It's more emotional. I tend to specialize in helping people feel better in their body who have non-specific injuries. So it tends to not be from an impact injury, which is to say something like you were skiing and you fell and you know what caused it, or had a car accident, or had a limb removed, or something like that. That's best left to somebody else. I specialize in working with people who say, I don't know why my back hurts. I don't know why my hips hurt. I don't know why my neck hurts. And I've been to the chiropractor and I've been to the acupuncturist and I've gone to massage. And that's exactly the story that I had for myself. And then it comes back. And I opened a true one-to-one facility where it's me and the client. And of course, we can do this by Zoom now. But to open up different avenues of working with people, and one of those avenues, it's not the only one, but is that conversation where there is that emotional underlying piece. So I've never really yet had a client who had chronic pain that kept coming back where there wasn't also an underlying story. I don't want to own my business anymore. My spouse cheated on me. I cheated on my spouse. I am unhappy in my job and I dream about quitting, etc. And those are extreme examples. There's smaller ones, but most of the time people are carrying around these kind of huge compressive burdens and they don't really know what to do, because especially the examples I just gave you, major life changes unfurl because of these. And so there's a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety and a lot of uncertainty about what they should do. So in the process of working with people, and I don't push people to have these conversations with me. I've had people that don't want to have them, and that's okay. But I am an open, safe space for them to start sharing these things as they're taking that compression and that pain out of their body. These things typically kind of bubble up and out. And I'm not a therapist, but I have good listening ears.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
The reason I sort of tuned into this field of working with fitness professionals, and specifically ones who deal in the area of physical pain, is I met up with a gentleman over in South Africa when I was there a few years ago, who is a stretch trauma therapist. I've never heard of such a thing. And through our conversation over many treatments, and he helped me get mobile again because I was really seizing up. It just mapped, because over the years you learn things like, you know, that your organs have all got memory. They form part of your memory. It's not just your brain that remembers things. Right. You find people who've had a heart transplant will suddenly take on different abnormalities or anomalies that they would never have liked before. People who've had a transfusion, they all of a sudden take on the personality of the person who had the transfusion.
Right.
People have had, I know a guy who had a liver transplant and he took on certain attributes of the donee, of the donor.
Very cool.
And very, very interesting thing. So that your memory is not just in your head, your emotions are throughout your body.
They are.
And I learned through him that it goes right down into your tendons and where it attaches into the bones.
Of course, yes.
And that's kind of the last place that your body wants to let go of these things, because it just wants to hold onto them. Yep. Because if it lets go, you've got to run. You either fight.
Change is afoot when you do let go. That is true. And that is why a lot of us do hang on to those things. So even though we know them, we just push them down and down and down and hope that we don't actually have to make those changes.
So it's an incredibly transformative field that you're working in, because you can really see the difference that you have on people that come to you.
Yes.
It's amazing.
I feel like fitness is, I mean, that's where I'm typically lumped into, is something that's more in the fitness category. I don't consider myself at all a fitness practitioner. It's hard to explain exactly what it is. So my title that I go by is movement specialist, but there's a whole layer underneath that of all of that emotional work, because we can do the physical work. And some clients want to stop there. They didn't sign up to come to a therapist or to do all of this work. But the true transformation is when we have both the mind and the body aligned, and we can release all of that tension and that compression and the stress. So what happens in a lot of cases as well is we have outside stressors on our body, and we think that once we stop that stress, that stressor is gone. But most of the time that stressor is bigger than what we can actually take on. And so we compress it into our joints. Our joint spaces literally tighten up. And so then we just kind of get used to the feeling of being stressed and tight, and the shoulders are up in the ears. And then we don't know why our back hurts. But our body is carrying around this tapestry of these events that have happened. And in some cases, I mean, I've had clients, these things have happened 30, 40 years ago. It doesn't have to be recent. It always shocks people, but there is a way that we physically carry around sexual trauma, for example. There's a way that we carry around childhood adverse events. It tends to have quite a similar patterning in the actual movement structures. So clients are sometimes surprised when I gently broach a question, which again, they don't need to talk about, but it becomes clear from how they move that trauma is inside them and that it's old trauma.
You'll know. I think this is a subject, unfortunately, that if it hasn't touched people's lives, they're very lucky.
They're very lucky. This is true.
99% of people have had some kind of trauma like this in some way, and it takes them decades to just be able to say, yes,
this happened.
It's me.
Yes.
It was me. Yeah.
There's a really interesting study of World War II veterans, because it's the largest group of people that they know of, that researchers know of, who went through a specifically defined trauma. And it takes on average 20 years to actually start dealing with it. So when the World War II vets came home, we didn't really have a huge cultural knowledge about trauma, but most of those young men were into their 40s by the time they actually started processing and unpacking that trauma.
Yeah. My dad was never able to talk about what went on in the war. He was a bomb disposal person in the army.
I have a grandfather who actually never talked about it either. But those patterns, those emotional patterns, actually ran down through the entire family. And that's probably part of my interest in some of this work, because it impacted him, it impacted my mom, that impacted how I was raised. And here we are, I'm raising another generation, and suddenly some of these things start to become obvious of how we pattern when we don't actually process the trauma.
That's interesting. So what would you say brings you the most amount of happiness in what you do?
Transforming.
Every job is stressful. Every business is stressful because you got to keep it going. So it's feeding you. What do you find that makes you wake up in the morning and think, yeah, I really want to do this again?
Just being with my clients and seeing those light bulbs turn on, and having people say to me, no one has ever told me this before, or this is something I didn't know. I had no awareness in myself. And when my business is in full normal operating capacity outside of COVID, I literally, without exaggerating, there isn't a week that goes by when I don't have one or more clients that are standing in front of me saying, this has changed my life and here is why. And that's really gratifying, because it's a profession where I wake up in the morning knowing that I'm going to touch somebody else's life in a very permanent way. Because once we kind of go through this work, you can't unknow this. You can't unknow it in your body.
It brings out the truth, doesn't it?
Yeah. And so
masking over the issue.
I feel so fortunate that I get to work in a job where the people who come to see me genuinely want to be doing this work. They have sought it out. They are committed to it, and they get these transformative results. And I mean, honestly, that's the most gratifying career path that I could think exists.
That is fantastic.
My time is really, yeah, it is. It's amazing.
So looking at how this year went, how was your business affected with the pandemic?
Well, like everywhere else in the world. So I'm in Canada, and we had a period where we were closed. So there was complete business closures. That's not really where we're at right now, although there are phases and changes and again, like everywhere else in the world, we kind of ebb and we flow. My favorite part of what has happened was global instant adaptation of technology. So although I had offered Zoom sessions or Skype sessions in the past, there was a lot of resistance to actually moving forward with those, which suddenly in one magical week in March in Canada was gone, because we all learned to use this software and it's what we did. And so it's been a gift in certain ways, because I have been able to work with people as far away as Australia, which is literally the other side of the world for us. I have been able to reconnect with clients that have moved away. I have been able to offer packages and programs that were not possible prior to this, just because we didn't have this ease of technology and the simplicity. Frankly, Zoom was around in 2019, but if I had said, let's hop on a Zoom call right now, 95% of people did not have the software on their phone, and it was just that extra step. So things have changed, and yet they have remained very much the same. I still service people one-to-one. The work still continues. Some of it is back to live in person, and then I have an additional arm where I can deliver it digitally.
That's fantastic. So it's turned a really positive out of what could have been a very problematic year. It has been problematic for many, many people.
I mean, I feel really lucky that I am not a brand new practitioner. I have a niche, I have a voice, I have an established business. And so without exaggeration, I was able to get my clients online within 3 hours. So, because 2 years ago, I had actually already made inroads into online programs. So I had the technology, I had the know-how, I had tested it all out. And so the morning that all the closures were announced, here clients, here is how we do this now. And I'm fortunate that I was positioned in that place where I wasn't sort of trying to sort out all of the back end, plus potentially be a new practitioner, et cetera. So, yes, I feel very lucky, and I'm aware that that is very lucky.
Yeah, I feel for the retail shops over here, because England's made of these little towns where you have a main street and these tiny little shops down the main street, and they've all been closed, and they're struggling. You can go back to the pub now only if you have what they call a substantial meal. So you can have a beer and a plate of chips, fries, but you can't have a beer on its own. It's like,
interesting.
How does that affect disease? It's just I can work out what the restrictions are.
We have our own restriction, inconsistencies as well. And I think that every government in the entire planet is trying to balance the disease.
They're all struggling with it.
Absolutely. And trying to not plow small business under. And to this, I just say, for every consumer, before you click on Amazon.com purchase, consider purchasing locally, because the small business owners need it. I mean, I have a small business in a bricks and mortar space, and I do have the good fortune of being able to translate a lot of what I do online, but not every business. A pub can't deliver your food.
So it's true. Going into next year, do you think you would expand your online presence a little to maybe free up your time, or do you think
I have done that. So in 2018 and 2019, I actually did some pre-recorded content that exists, and that will be put out there in a bigger way in 2020. And then I have digital classes, and I have more of those than I ever did before. So my primary work has always been one-to-one, but I've had a lot of consumer interest in, maybe we can't afford to do this one-to-one. Can you offer it in a more bite-sized component? So I have expanded that offering quite substantially as well.
And if people want to get in touch with you, how would they get to work with you, and what would you offer them? You have a package that you offer them?
So I do private sessions by way of literal customization. So I do 3 sessions to get started to make sure that everybody's kind of on the same page. And then from there, typically you buy a month package so that it's not a long commitment period. It's not kind of sign up for 22 sessions or whatever. It's just commit to the next month. And then with my digital classes, it's actually the same thing. We just go month by month. I have always been very committed to the idea of having clients who want to be working with me, not clients who've purchased packages and feel like they have to use them up. So
Yeah.
I really tried to keep a pricing structure that's easy for everybody, but actually is very much, let's only commit to a short window so that if you decide that this isn't working for you in any way, it could be your time, it could be your budget, it could be the results, it could be anything else, that you don't feel this obligation to try to, if you're there to get rid of pain, the last thing you want is financial or time constraints to the practitioner that you no longer want to work with. That doesn't typically happen for me, but I have been conscious of that from day one, that I don't want to sort of loop anybody into a scenario that they don't want to be in.
That's a nice open way to work with people. And if you have a web link that people can go to, do you have that?
I do. It's My Body Couture. So it's 3 words put into one string.
MyBodyCouture.com.
MY, body, B-O-D-Y, couture, C-O-U-T-U-R-E. So you can find me on the .com, or you can find me as well on Facebook or Instagram.
That's excellent. It'd be nice if once we publish this on Anchor FM, on LinkedIn and Facebook, then hopefully we'll get some references into you.
Absolutely. That would be great.
I work with a few fitness trainers here who have been working from home during the lockdown. We only got opened up on Tuesday this week.
Oh, wow.
Business.
Oh, wow. In North America, we're going the other way. We're closing down right now. So,
which is good. Yeah, you're in winter as well. So
we're
heading into this. It snowed for the first time today, so it's really cold. I expect it to be quite bad during winter for the illness, but the number's not that bad as they.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Well,
we're all just making our way through this unknown scenario, doing the best that we can.
Yeah, I think the best is just to follow the advice and, be very careful. Don't treat it like the virus doesn't exist, because I had it. I know. It's not fun.
Well, I'm glad that you recovered.
Yeah, no, it took a few months, but you feel much better. You feel normal after about 3 or 4 months.
Oh, wow.
Later. It just really hangs on to you.
Huh.
But yeah, do take it seriously. And let's get your links out on the video. Once I've done the editing and sent it to you, I'll have when you post it, you can just add the link in the comments below. That'll be great. So I'll wrap this up. And yeah, thank you for being with me today, Janis. Really appreciate you being on the podcast, and look forward to seeing how business progresses. And if you are able to come on again in a few weeks or months' time, whenever you feel like, we'll be in touch. So
that'd be great. Perfect.
Really
Thanks so much.
super talking to you.
You too. All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers.